a young woman sat down at her laptop and took a deep breath. She was ready to start work on what would be her first project in her new studio. The space was big and bright, flooded with natural light from large windows. The walls were bare, though, and there was no furniture except for a single chair sitting in the middle of the room. Taking another deep breath, she opened up her program and started to draw. Meanwhile, in a cluttered workshop, a man ran a wrench across a metal pipe. It was almost exactly the same size and shape as the hole it was supposed to fit into, but it just didn't quite fit. He grunted with frustration and set the pipe down. With a sigh, he went over to his workbench and picked up a piece of paper and a pencil. In an office building across town, a businessman slammed his phone down on his desk. The caller had been rude and dismissive, telling him that his company was unbig enough to be considered for the project he wanted to pitch them on. The businessman felt deflated. No one ever wanted to listen to him. He always felt like he had to prove himself, but somehow never did. Maybe he should just quit trying, go back to school, and get a real job. At a small farm on the outskirts of town, a woman stood in the middle of a field looking out at a dilapidated barn. A heavy wind blew through the tall grass, making them bow low before rising once more. She loved this place and all the memories it held, but it was getting harder and harder to keep up with repairs and upkeep. It was a beautiful piece of property, though, if only someone with means would come along and buy it. Finally, in a quiet apartment, a young man was staring at his ceiling. For weeks now, he hadn't been able to sleep because of all the problems he had. His business was failing, his girlfriend had just left him, and his landlord had threatened to evict him if he didn't pay rent soon. What was he even going to do? Each of these people worked hard, had unique talents, and were determined to make something of themselves. They just didn't know how to do it alone. Our businesswoman, Maya, had spent years trying to build up her business. She wanted to help other entrepreneurs succeed, but often found herself competing with them instead. Each time she pitched a company on a project, another, bigger company would swoop in and take it away from her. She had a great product, good marketing skills, and knew how to manage a business well. She just needed a chance to prove herself. The artist, Kenji, had always loved creating things. He would spend hours designing, drawing, and coming up with new products that he could sell. But he lacked focus. If something interesting came up, he would drop whatever he was working on to go chase after it. And while he created some amazing pieces, he never finished anything. He didn't have anyone to hold him accountable. He didn't have a team. Across town, the mechanic, Omar, had a gift for fixing things. He could look at a pile of scrap metal and see a dozen different ways that he could fix it, upgrade it, reuse it, or He had an eye for detail and knew how to save money. He just didn't have access to many projects that needed such specialized attention. And finally, the farmer, Nadia, had spent her whole life on this land. She had a deep connection to the soil and knew how to grow incredible produce. She did not need pesticides or herbicides and was known for miles around for the quality of her goods. She just didn't have any way to transport them to buyers in larger numbers. As the days passed, none of them were able to accomplish their goals. Maya couldn't secure a client, Kenji couldn't finish a project, Omar couldn't find work, and Nadia couldn't figure out how to get her farm off the ground. They were each successful in their own right, but alone they weren't able to do much. One day, though, something changed. Maya was walking home from a failed meeting when she passed Kenji's shop. As she walked by, she saw a sign hanging from the door that said, "Help wanted, detail-oriented person to help with projects." Intrigued, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. Kenji looked up from his work and smiled at her. "Hey, are you here about the ad?" he asked. Maya nodded. "I am. I've seen your work. It's incredible," she said, gesturing to a half-finished sculpture on the table. "Thank you," Kenji blushed, "but I can't seem to finish anything. I get distracted easily." He explained that he needed someone to help keep him focused, so that he could complete projects. "I think I might be able to help," Maya said. Soon after, the two of them had struck up an agreement. Then, as luck would have it, Omar walked by and heard them talking. "Do you need someone to help you with your projects?" he asked. Kenji and Maya turned to face him. "Yeah, actually we do," Maya replied. "What can you do?" Omar smiled and said, "I'm a mechanic. I can fix things, build things, pretty much anything you need." The three of them talked for a bit longer and decided to join forces, combining their skills to create a line of custom, beautifully designed tools and hardware. News of their collaboration spread quickly throughout the community. People were excited to hear about the amazing tools being made, so they placed orders, which gave the trio the capital they needed to bring on more talent. Soon they had a full workshop buzzing with activity. It wasn't always easy. They all had different personalities, strengths, and weaknesses. Sometimes arguments broke out or deadlines were missed, but they learned how to work together, how to compromise, and most importantly, how to trust each other. Through hard work and perseverance, they managed to launch their business. Then one day, a well-dressed woman walked into their store. She introduced herself as Nadia and said that she heard they were making custom hardware. "I'm interested in collaborating," she offered. Intrigued, the three partners invited her to sit down and talk. After hearing her out, they agreed to meet her at her farm to see if they could help her with any of her projects. When they arrived, they were blown away by the beauty of the land and the quality of the produce that Nadia was growing. "We could definitely help you get your produce to market," Omar said, nodding towards a pile of rotting vegetables. "If you give us a few months, we can design a machine that could sort, package, and transport your produce to vendors." Excited, Nadia and the four collaborators got to work. Months later, they had built a small fleet of machines that helped Nadia process and distribute her goods. In exchange, Nadia allowed them to use a portion of her land for an outdoor portion of their store, which gave them additional exposure and sales. Together, this group of 5 talented individuals accomplished far more than they ever could have alone. Their combined efforts brought them recognition, success, and a level of fulfillment that was impossible to achieve on their own. They proved that sometimes the greatest achievements are the ones you accomplish with others. A few years later, standing in front of the thriving business that they built together, they reflected on how far they'd come. They had taken their individual passions and talents and woven them together into something beautiful. "I never thought that I could do something like this on my own," Maya admitted. "None of us could have done it alone," Omar replied. "It took all of us, our different strengths and perspectives, to make this work." They all looked out at the land, no longer weathered and worn, but bursting with new life and potential. They had proven that when people with different skills, backgrounds, and experiences come together, they can accomplish amazing things. They had taken their different paths and woven them together, creating a masterpiece that was greater than the sum of its parts. In the end, it wasn't about the individual journeys. It was about the destination they reached together. There's a beautiful quote that goes, "Success doesn't belong to one, it's built by many." This perfectly sums up the journey of these 5 friends who built an empire together. And that's all for today's story. We hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we did. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. And thank you for being a part of our community.